The notification chimed at 2:47 a.m. while I was elbow deep in the engine bay of my Ford pickup. Motion detected in the living room. I wiped grease from my hands and pulled out my phone, expecting to see our tabby cat knocking over another plant. Instead, I watched a man in a tailored overcoat cross my rug. My name is Rylan Ventor, and until that moment, I thought my biggest problem was a blown head gasket. I'm 38, run a home renovation business out of my garage, and I'd been married to Jenna for 12 years. We lived in a weathered Cape Cod house 3 blocks from the harbor in Millbrook, Massachusetts, one of those New England coastal towns where the paint peels faster than you can apply it, and everyone knows your business before you do. The security system was my latest project. Motion-activated cameras, smartphone alerts, cloud storage. The whole setup cost me 3 weeks of evenings and $800 I probably should have spent on the truck. Jenna had rolled her eyes when I showed her the app. Really, Rye? We live in Millbrook, not Boston. What are you protecting us from? Aggressive seagulls? Now I knew exactly what I'd been protecting us from. The man on my screen moved with casual familiarity through our front hallway. He hung his coat on the hook I'd installed last spring, the one Jenna always said was too close to the door. He knew where everything was. This wasn't his first visit. I heard Jenna's voice through the phone's audio feed. Low, intimate, the way she used to talk to me during our first year of marriage. The way she hadn't talked to me in at least 3. I was wondering when you'd get here, she said, appearing in frame, wearing the silk robe I'd bought her for Christmas. The one she claimed was too fancy for every day. The man stepped toward her, and I recognized him. Chad Raines, everyone called him Chaz, owned the biggest real estate development firm in town. I'd done work on 2 of his properties, back when Jenna first started her architecture job downtown. He was the kind of guy who wore $1,000 shoes to construction sites and complained when they got dusty. My wife kissed him like she meant it. I sat in my driveway, engine oil under my fingernails, watching my marriage collapse in high definition. The smart thing would have been to storm inside, confront them both, demand explanations. Instead, I did what 12 years of living with Jenna had taught me to do. I gathered information first. I opened the security app's history. The motion alerts went back 6 weeks, every Thursday night, same time. Chaz's BMW in my driveway, while I was supposedly at my weekly poker game at Murphy's Bar. Except I'd stopped going to poker 3 months ago when business got tight. I'd been spending those Thursday nights in the garage, catching up on paperwork and avoiding another fight about money. Jenna thought I was still playing cards and losing $20 pots to guys who installed cable for a living. She'd built her affair around my supposed schedule, never bothering to check if that schedule was still accurate. The footage showed everything. Chaz letting himself in with a key, my spare key, the one from under the fake rock by the front steps. Jenna greeting him in different outfits, different poses, same hungry expression. They used my kitchen, my living room, my bedroom. They drank wine from the glasses I'd given Jenna for our anniversary. I exported the files, organized them by date, and saved everything to 3 separate drives. Then I sat in the cold October air and tried to figure out what kind of man I was about to become. The old Rylan would have confronted them immediately, demanded apologies, maybe suggested counseling. The old Rylan believed in second chances and working things out like adults. But the old Rylan had been an idiot who missed 6 weeks of betrayal happening under his own roof. The new Rylan was going to be smarter. I waited until they finished their business, and Chaz left through the back door, careful not to be seen by the neighbors, though not careful enough to avoid my cameras. Then I went inside and found Jenna in our bedroom, pretending to read a magazine. "How was poker?" she asked without looking up. "Enlightening," I said. "Lost about $20, but learned some interesting things about reading people's tells." She nodded absently. "I'm exhausted. Long day at the office." I bet it was. I brushed my teeth next to the sink where Chaz had washed his hands an hour earlier, then climbed into bed next to my wife. She'd changed the sheets. They smelled like lavender detergent instead of the usual unscented stuff we bought in bulk. "New detergent?" I asked. "Thought we'd try something different," she said, still not meeting my eyes. I lay there listening to her breathe, planning my next move. The motion detector had given me something precious. Time to think, time to plan, time to decide exactly how I wanted this to end. Jenna fell asleep within minutes. the way guilty people do when they think they've gotten away with something. I stayed awake until dawn, watching the sunrise paint our bedroom walls the color of rust. By morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The next few days passed like a fever dream. I went through the motions of normal life while conducting a forensic examination of my marriage. Jenna left for work at 8:30, came home at 6:15, complained about her boss and the city planning committee and the weather. She kissed my cheek when she left each morning, asked about my day when she returned each evening. She was a better actress than I'd given her credit for. I spent my days installing kitchen cabinets for the Hendersons and my evenings becoming an expert in digital surveillance. The security system I'd installed was more sophisticated than I'd realized. Motion activation, audio recording, automatic cloud backup. It had been documenting everything for weeks. Wednesday afternoon, I drove to Old Man Derry's boxing gym down by the waterfront. I'd trained there in my 20s, back when I thought I might make something of myself with my fists instead of my tools. The place hadn't changed. Same cracked heavy bags, same smell of sweat and liniment, same ancient speed bag that sounded like a machine gun when you got the rhythm right. Derry was pushing 70, but still built like a dock worker. He looked up from wrapping someone's hands and grinned when he saw me. Rylan Ventor. Thought you'd gotten too fancy for us working stiffs. Never too fancy for this place, I said. Got time to talk? We sat in his cluttered office while he poured coffee from a pot that looked older than both of us. I'd known Derry since I was 16. He'd taught me how to throw a punch and how to take one. But more importantly, he'd taught me how to think 3 moves ahead. What's eating you, kid? He asked. I told him everything. The cameras, the affair, the lies. Derry listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding like he'd heard variations of this story before. So, what's your plan? He asked when I finished. That's what I'm trying to figure out. You want my advice? Don't do anything stupid. Don't throw punches, don't make threats. Don't give them any excuse to paint you as the bad guy. You want to win this thing, you use your head. What if I don't want to win? What if I just want them to lose? Derry studied me for a long moment. That's a dangerous way to think, Rylan. But if that's the road you're going down, make sure you're willing to live with where it ends. I left the gym with a guest pass and a lot to think about. That evening, I started going through Jenna's digital life with the same methodical approach I used for electrical work. One circuit at a time, following each connection to its source. She'd been sloppy with her passwords. The same 8 characters she'd used for everything since college. Her maiden name plus her birth year. It got me into her email, her social media, her cloud storage. What I found there painted a picture that was somehow worse than the simple affair I'd discovered. Chaz wasn't just her lover. He was her exit strategy. The emails went back 4 months, starting professional and gradually becoming personal. Jenna complained about our finances, our house, our life together. She called me sweet but limited in one message and stuck in the past in another. Chaz played the sympathetic ear, offering solutions to all her problems. He could get her a better position at a firm in Boston. He knew people in the city planning department who could fast-track her licensing. He had connections that could open doors she'd never imagined. All she had to do was leave me. The most recent exchange was from Tuesday morning, 2 days after I discovered them together. Jenna, I feel terrible about this. He doesn't deserve what we're doing. Chaz, you can't live your life for someone else's feelings. You deserve better than fixing leaky faucets and worrying about grocery money. Jenna, I know it's just hard. We've been together so long. Chaz, sunk cost fallacy. Just because you've invested time doesn't mean you should keep investing more. Trust me, I know about cutting losses. Reading that felt like taking a punch to the solar plexus. 12 years of marriage reduced to a business decision about cutting losses. I printed every email, every text message, every digital breadcrumb that showed how they'd planned to dismantle my life. Thursday evening arrived like a storm front. I parked 3 blocks away and walked back to my house, approaching from the alley behind our neighbor's garage. The motion sensors were set to send alerts to my phone, but I'd disabled the audio notifications. I wanted to watch this unfold in real time. Chaz arrived at 7:30 sharp, parking in the same spot he'd used for 6 weeks. He let himself in through the front door like he owned the place. This time, I was ready for him. I'd spent the afternoon preparing. The spare key was still under the fake rock, but now it opened a door equipped with additional security measures. Hidden cameras in every room, audio recording equipment, and a few surprises that would make this evening memorable for everyone involved. My phone buzzed with motion alerts as they moved through the house. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, their usual routine. But tonight would be different. Tonight they were going to discover that their private affair had become a very public performance. I waited until they were settled in the bedroom, then sent the first message. The text went to Chaz's phone at 8:15 p.m. You missed a spot under the left pillow. I watched through the bedroom camera as he checked his phone, frowned, then lifted the pillow. Nothing there, of course. But the message had the intended effect. Sudden paranoia, whispered conversations, nervous glances around the room. Who was that? Jenna asked. Wrong number, Chaz lied, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. He was smart enough to be worried, just not smart enough to leave. The second message arrived 10 minutes later. The motion detector catches everything. Smile for the camera. This time, Chaz bolted upright and started searching the room. He found the first camera within 30 seconds. I'd made it deliberately obvious, mounted on the dresser like a store security device. He yanked out the cables and held it up triumphantly. Got it, he told Jenna. Someone's been recording us. Recording us? Who would? She stopped mid-sentence, her face going pale. Oh, God. Rylan. They spent the next 20 minutes tearing apart the bedroom, finding 2 more cameras and a digital recorder I'd hidden in the heating vent. They found the obvious ones anyway. The real surveillance equipment was built into the room's infrastructure. Fiber optic lenses in the smoke detector, audio pickups in the electrical outlets, wireless transmitters that looked like wall anchors. I'd spent 3 days turning our bedroom into a broadcast studio. The third message was a photograph. Chaz's BMW in my driveway, timestamp clearly visible. Then another photo. Chaz hanging his coat on my hook. Then another. Jenna greeting him in the hallway. He knows, Jenna whispered. He's known all along. Chaz was pacing now, his earlier confidence replaced by something approaching panic. How long has he been watching? What else does he have? I could have told him. 6 weeks of footage, 43 separate encounters, enough audio to fill a small library. But I was enjoying watching him figure it out on his own. The fourth message was an email sent to Chaz's business account from an anonymous address, containing a highlight reel of their greatest hits, video clips, audio files, timestamps, and locations. Everything organized and labeled, like evidence for a court case, which, I realized, it might eventually become. My phone rang at 8:47 p.m., Jenna's number. Hello, sweetheart, I answered. How's your evening going? Rylan, we need to talk. I'm sure we do, but I'm at Murphy's bar, remember? Thursday night poker game. Can it wait until I get home? Silence on the other end, then whispered conversation I couldn't quite make out. Where are you, really? She asked. Exactly where you think I am every Thursday night. The question is, where are you? More silence. I could picture them in our bedroom, surrounded by dismantled cameras and growing panic. I'm at home, she said finally. Alone? The pause stretched long enough for me to count heartbeats. Yes, she lied. Funny thing about those motion detectors, I said. They're very precise about counting warm bodies. The living room sensor shows 2 people right now. The bedroom sensor shows 2 people. Either we have a very organized burglar, or you're not being entirely honest with me. I heard Chaz's voice in the background. Hang up. Just hang up. But Jenna stayed on the line. How long have you known? 6 weeks, 2 days, and approximately 4 hours. Give or take. Why didn't you say anything? I wanted to see how far you'd take it. Turns out, pretty far. The line went quiet except for background noise. Shuffling feet, whispered arguments, the sound of 2 people realizing they'd been outplayed. What do you want? Jenna asked. That's an interesting question. What do I want? I want the last 12 years back. I want the money you've been hiding in that Boston account. I want to unknow everything I've learned about who you really are. But since none of that's possible, I'll settle for watching you explain this to your boss, your coworkers, your family, and anyone else who might be interested in your extracurricular activities. You wouldn't. I already have. Check your email. I'd sent the evidence package to everyone in Jenna's contact list: work colleagues, family members, old friends from college. The subject line read, "Some things you should know about Jenna Venter." The message was brief and professional. The attached files speak for themselves. Draw your own conclusions. "You're insane," she whispered. "No, I'm thorough. There's a difference." I heard Chaz's voice again, louder this time. "We're leaving. Now." "Good idea," I said into the phone. "But Chaz might want to check his tires before he drives anywhere. Parking on the street can be risky this time of night." Through the security app, I watched them rush to the front window. Chaz's BMW sat in the driveway with 4 flat tires and homewrecker keyed into the driver's side door. "You vandalized his car." "I improved it, added some character." Chaz always struck me as someone who needed more character. The call ended abruptly. I sat in Murphy's bar, where I'd actually driven after setting up the evening's entertainment, and watched the security feeds on my phone. Chaz and Jenna stood in my driveway, arguing in heated whispers, while he called a tow truck on his cell phone. The bartender, Mickey, leaned over and glanced at my screen. "What you watching there, Rye?" "Home movies," I said. "Documentary about marriage in modern America. Very educational." "Any good?" "Better than most reality shows. More plot twists." I ordered another beer and settled in to watch the rest of the performance. This was only the opening act. Friday morning brought consequences like a nor'easter brings rain, sudden, overwhelming, and impossible to ignore. I woke up alone in my house for the first time in 12 years. Jenna had left sometime after midnight, taking 2 suitcases and leaving a note on the kitchen counter. "We need space to figure this out." Space. As if geography could solve what surveillance had revealed. My phone had been buzzing since dawn. Missed calls from Jenna's sister, her mother, 3 coworkers, and someone named Patricia from her architecture firm. The evidence package had made its rounds through her professional and personal networks with the efficiency of a computer virus. I made coffee and checked the morning's damage. The video files had been viewed 847 times across various devices. The email had been forwarded to addresses I didn't recognize, spreading beyond my original distribution list into the wider community. Millbrook was a small town where secrets traveled fast, and I'd just released the biggest secret of the year into the wild. My first appointment was at 9, installing bathroom fixtures for the Kowalskis on Elm Street. Mrs. Kowalski greeted me at the door with the expression of someone who'd seen something she wished she hadn't. "Morning, Rylan. How are you holding up?" Word traveled fast in small towns, but not that fast. Unless... "You saw the email," I said. She nodded sympathetically. "My sister Linda works at the planning office downtown. She said everyone's talking about it." I spent the morning installing a new vanity while fielding questions about my marriage, my plans, and my mental state. Mrs. Kowalski meant well, but her concern felt like curiosity, wrapped in casseroles and sympathy cards. "You know," she said while I connected the plumbing, "my cousin went through something similar. Caught her husband with the neighbor's wife. Took him for everything in the divorce." "I'm not looking to take anyone for anything," I said. "I just want them to own what they did. Sometimes that's harder than taking their money." She was right about that. My phone rang while I was testing the faucet connections. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. "This is Chad Rains. We need to talk." "Do we? I thought you said everything you needed to say in my bedroom. Look, I know you're upset, but what you did last night crossed a line. Vandalizing my car, sending those files to people, that's harassment. I could press charges." I laughed, which seemed to surprise him. "You could try," I said, "but I'm not sure he caught me sleeping with his wife plays well in court. Plus, I have a very good lawyer who specializes in documentation. Turns out, when you record everything, it's hard for people to lie about what happened." "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear. Leave town, find a new hobby, stop using my house as a hotel." "Simple enough." "I have a business here. I can't just leave." then I guess you'll have to learn to live with the consequences of your choices. Fair warning, though, I'm just getting started. I hung up and went back to work. The Kowalski's bathroom was coming together nicely, all clean lines and proper connections, unlike some other things in my life. That afternoon, I drove to Jenna's office downtown. The Millbrook Planning and Development Department occupied the second floor of a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. Very modern, very progressive, very much the kind of place where people like Jenna could reinvent themselves as something more sophisticated than the wife of a handyman. I found her at her desk, staring at her computer screen with the expression of someone reading her own obituary. "Busy day?" I asked. She looked up, startled. "You can't be here. This is my workplace. It's a public building. I pay taxes. I have every right to be here." Her supervisor, a thin woman named Patricia, approached from across the room. I recognized her from the office Christmas party, the one where Jenna had introduced me as, "My husband, he fixes things," like I was a household appliance. "Mr. Ventor," Patricia said carefully, "perhaps this conversation would be better suited for a private setting." "Actually, I think this is the perfect setting. Very public, lots of witnesses, official atmosphere. Seems appropriate for discussing official business." "What official business?" Jenna asked. I pulled out a folder containing printouts of her email exchanges with Chaz, the ones discussing her plans to leave me, her complaints about our finances, and most importantly, her requests for help, getting a better position through his connections. "The kind where city employees use their positions for personal gain," I said, handing the folder to Patricia. "Quid pro quo arrangements, conflicts of interest, that sort of thing." Patricia's face went pale as she scanned the documents. "These are private emails," Jenna protested, "between a city employee and a private developer who's currently bidding on 3 municipal contracts," I said. "I'm no lawyer, but that seems like the kind of thing the ethics committee might find interesting." The office had gone quiet. Everyone was pretending to work while obviously listening to every word. "I think we should continue this discussion in my office," Patricia said. "Good idea," I agreed. I brought copies for everyone. I left the building 20 minutes later, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Jenna would keep her job, probably, but her reputation was another matter. In a small town, reputation was currency, and I'd just made her very poor. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over." I typed back, "You're right, it's just getting started." Saturday morning brought Chaz to my front door like a bad weather system, all bluster and threat with nothing substantial behind it. I was in the garage, organizing tools, and pretending I hadn't seen his rental car pull into my driveway. The security system sent me alerts as he approached, but I let him knock 3 times before answering. "We need to talk," he said. He looked different without his usual confidence. Rumpled clothes, stubble, the kind of desperation that comes from watching your carefully constructed life collapse in real time. "Come on in," I said, stepping aside. "Can I get you some coffee? Water? A tour of the security system you've been ignoring for 6 weeks?" He followed me into the living room, glancing nervously at the corners, where he'd found cameras 2 nights earlier. "How many more are there?" he asked. "Enough. Have a seat." He remained standing, trying to maintain some illusion of control. "I want to make a deal with you." "What kind of deal?" "I'll end things with Jenna. Completely. No contact, no communication. I'll even leave town if that's what it takes. But you need to stop this campaign of harassment." I sat down in my recliner, the one Jenna always said made the living room look cheap, and studied him. Up close, Chaz looked older than his 41 years. The stress was showing in the lines around his eyes, the way he held his shoulders like he was carrying something heavy. "Harassment?" I said. "That's an interesting word choice. When you use someone's home for your personal entertainment, what do you call that?" "Look, I know what we did was wrong. Do you? Because from where I sit, it looks like you thought it was pretty convenient. My house, my bed, my schedule. Very efficient." He started pacing, which triggered another motion alert on my phone. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "I want you to understand something, Chaz. You didn't just sleep with my wife. You helped her plan her exit strategy. You promised her a better life, a better job, better connections. You sold her a fantasy about leaving me behind, like I was some kind of obstacle to overcome. She was unhappy. She was bored. There's a difference. And instead of talking to her husband about it, she decided to audition for a replacement. With your help. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen, a live feed from the camera mounted in my front yard. Smile, Chaz. You're on camera again. He looked around the room with growing panic. How many people have seen those files? Hard to say. The internet's a funny thing. Once something gets out there, it takes on a life of its own. I've stopped counting the views. This is destroying my business. My reputation? Your reputation as what? A guy who sleeps with married women while their husbands are working? I'd say that reputation is pretty accurate. He stopped pacing and faced me directly. I could make this very expensive for you. Lawsuits, criminal charges. For what? Recording activities in my own home? Sharing factual information about my wife's behavior? Good luck with that. The truth was, I'd already consulted with a lawyer, Tom Bradley, who'd handled my business incorporation and a few contract disputes over the years. Tom had reviewed everything and given me the same advice Old Man Derry had. Stay within the law, document everything, and let their own actions destroy them. Besides, I continued, I'm not sure you want this in front of a judge. Discovery goes both ways, and I have a feeling your business dealings might not survive that kind of scrutiny. That hit home. Chaz's face went pale. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've had time to research your company, your contracts, your relationships with city officials. Interesting patterns emerge when you start connecting dots. I was bluffing, mostly. But Chaz's reaction told me I was bluffing in the right direction. You're fishing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maybe. But I'm a patient fisherman, and I've got plenty of bait. My phone buzzed with another motion alert. Someone else was approaching the house, Jenna's car pulling into the driveway behind Chaz's rental. Looks like the gang's all here, I said. Jenna came through the front door without knocking, something she hadn't done since we were newlyweds. She looked like she hadn't slept, which was probably accurate. What is he doing here? She asked, glaring at Chaz. Trying to negotiate terms of surrender, I said. How did your meeting with Patricia go yesterday? I'm suspended pending an ethics review. Happy? Getting there. She turned to Chaz. This is your fault. If you hadn't been so careless. My fault? You're the one who said he was too stupid to notice. That stopped the conversation cold. Jenna's face flushed red, and Chaz realized he'd just made a very expensive mistake. Too stupid to notice, I repeated. Is that what you said about me? Rylan, I didn't mean... Actually, I think you meant exactly that. Your husband's too stupid to notice his wife having an affair in his own house. Too stupid to realize she's planning to leave him. Too stupid to fight back when he finds out. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the harbor where fishing boats were heading out for the day's work. You know what the funny thing is? You were almost right. The old me would have been too stupid to notice, too trusting to check, too decent to fight back. But the new me learned some interesting things about patience and planning and letting people destroy themselves. I turned back to face them both. So here's what's going to happen. Chaz, you're going to withdraw your bids on those city contracts. All of them? You're going to find a new place to conduct your business, preferably somewhere far from here. And you're going to pray that I don't decide to look deeper into your financial arrangements with municipal officials. And if I don't, then I release the rest of the files, the ones showing how you've been using inside information from city planning meetings to bid on properties before they go to public auction, the ones documenting your relationships with zoning board members, the ones that turn this from a simple affair into a federal investigation. Again, I was mostly bluffing, but the fear in his eyes told me I was close enough to the truth to make it work. As for you, I said to Jenna, you have a choice to make. You can try to salvage what's left of your career here, rebuild your reputation, maybe even try to rebuild our marriage. Or you can follow your boyfriend to whatever rock he crawls under, but you can't have both. That's not fair, she said. Fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you telling me you were unhappy instead of auditioning for my replacement. Fair would have been you asking for a divorce instead of planning your exit strategy in secret Fair would have been you showing me the basic respect of not using our home as your personal hotel. The room fell silent except for the sound of boats in the harbor and the distant cry of seagulls. I need time to think, Jenna said finally. You've had 6 weeks to think. Time's up. She looked at Chaz, who was staring at his shoes, like they held the answers to his problems. Are you going to help me figure this out? She asked him. I can't, he said without looking up. I have my own problems to deal with. And there it was, the moment when Jenna realized that her fantasy of a better life was just that, a fantasy. Chaz wasn't her knight in shining armor. He was just another guy looking out for himself when things got complicated. Get out, she said to him. Both of you, just get out of my house. Actually, I said, it's my house. My name on the deed, my signature on the mortgage. But you're welcome to leave anytime you want. Chaz headed for the door without another word. Jenna stood in the middle of our living room, looking lost and small, and nothing like the confident woman who'd been planning to leave me for a better life. What happens now? She asked. Now you figure out who you really are when nobody's watching, I said, and I figure out whether the man I've become is someone I can live with. The motion detector chimed as Chaz's car pulled away. Jenna and I stood in the silence that followed, two strangers in a house full of memories and broken promises. Outside, the October wind was picking up, rattling the windows and reminding us both that winter was coming, whether we were ready for it or not.